Hey guys, welcome back to Sweet Yellow House, and we are going to start off with our Friday craft. And before we get started, just let you know that we do have a Patreon account, and we'd love it if you go over there and become a patron. And let's get started. So this is what we're starting out with, these two little crazy wall plaque things from probably the 70s, I assume. So I'm just going to pop off the little metal pieces there that are just glued down. This stuff is actually made out of like some kind of compressed board. So I'm gonna grab my paper clay, and I'm gonna grab these 3 different molds because I'm gonna use elements from each of these. So the olive crest, the horse and hound, and laurel. Olive crest and horse and hound are the newest ones that they put out. So I'm gonna start with just molding some pieces. At this point, I'm not really sure what I'm doing. I'm just kind of making some pieces of each just to see where I'm going with it. A lot of times I just kind of wing it. So you see here that I'm kind of starting to get an idea of where I'm going, and so I'm just trying to pick and choose what I'm gonna put on there and stuff. And then once I kind of get a plan, then that's when I'll grab my glue, my Titebond, and I'll start putting down the elements that look good to me. So this is the first step of that process. So you'll see here in the next couple of clips that I just make a bunch of different molds like here, but I'm just trying them on there because I'm not really sure what I'm going to use to wrap the sides of this, because I don't want any of that compressed board showing through, and it's not paintable. You'll still see like the texture of that underneath. So all of it really does need to be covered in one way or another. So I decided last that I'm just gonna go back to the first pieces that I start out with and use that to go ahead and wrap the sides of that. So here you just see that I'm kind of fitting it and adjusting it, and really that's what you have to do when you're kind of just going sorry, my dog's dreaming. So when you're kind of just going to, and you don't really have a plan, but that's part of the fun. So I start to get an idea here, and now I'm just kind of going with it, and it looks good to me. A lot of times I'll put it on there and move it aside and kind of look at it sideways and see if it's appealing to me, and if it relaxes on my brain and it's easy to look at, or if I kind of wince when I take a look at it, then I know I need to change it. So I'm gonna grab the horse and hound mold and use the little acorn and leaves element out of that one, which I really do love. So here's a tip. I always have glue in a syringe, and it just helps me get into those little tight spots without having to lift my mold off. And right now I'm gonna really need this because the next step that we're doing is we're gonna fill all those little gaps that you see in between where I put those molds. So I'm just putting that syringe in there, and I'm just filling it with glue because I want it to look like seamless. I want it to look like one piece. So once I get all that done, I kind of press everything down and I put it aside and let it dry. So I let it dry overnight, and then I went in with some green paint, Salty Kiss from DIY. I went with a really bright green because after I get done putting all of the antiquing wax and everything else on it, I still want it to read green. I don't want it to read like muddy green or olive green, I still wanted to have some brightness to it. So that's why I went with such a bright color. So I ended up doing probably a good 3 or 4 coats, and watering that paint down some helps a lot. So after I got it all covered, I set that aside to dry, and once that was dry, I went in with the clear wax, and I went with this wax because it's a lot more runny, and you're able to kind of get into those crevices. So I just covered all of it with this wax, and then I went back in and kind of took that brush and kind of soaked up all the puddles and stuff. So, and then I went in with these 3 colors of wax, and I blended them all together, and I always have this on hand because I use it a lot. So the reason I put down the clear wax first was to give me a protective barrier, because that paint is so matte that it will just soak up everything. So having that clear barrier between that and this antiquing just kind of gives you way more control over that. So I'm just putting that antiquing wax down, and I wet my paper towel so it's not so rough on some of the details on those molds. So you can see here that I'm just using that brush, that really soft brush, and I'm getting into all of those nooks and crannies, and then I'm wiping it back. So I'm really wiping it back quite a bit because I don't want a whole lot of that brown showing through. I just want you to get a hint of that antique in there, but I don't want it to be like that's all you see. So once I got all that done, I went in with my gilding wax, of course, and I laid this gilding wax down pretty thick. So I wanted it to have all the elements of the detail being there, but also it have some kind of sophistication to it as well. I don't know about you, but I really love the combination of gold and green. I just think it's so pretty, and I just love the way that these turned out, and the green, the way it shines. So just to let you know that we do sell the projects that we make on our excuse me, on our website. So if you're interested in any of that, go check that out. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this 2-part resin, and I'm going to grab some resin coloring in black. So this is pretty basic. You measure out 2 equal parts of the resin, the hardener, and the resin itself. And then you pour that into a single cup together, and you want to stir it well, and then once that's stirred in well together, mixed well together, then I add the black color in. And then what I do, it's not necessary but it's helpful, is that I'll grab my heating gun and I'll just heat that resin because it does a couple of things. It pops the bubbles that are in there, and it also loosens that resin up. So here you'll see me, I'll pour some of it but not all of it, and then I'll use the heat gun to get those bubbles out as well, and that helps from keeping those bubbles that are on the bottom kind of surfacing, and then you're left with little holes there and stuff. So I went ahead and poured that in, and actually got the heat gun and used that. And I did actually too, you know, after I used the heat gun and all the bubbles were gone, I did go back after about an hour or so and did the heat gun again, just to make sure I didn't end up with any bubbles there. So once that was cured and all set, then I went and I grabbed, because I had molded some extra pieces from the olive crest mold. The no, it wasn't that one, I'm sorry, it was the horse and hound. It was the little acorn ones there. So I painted those black, and then I just used some of my gilding wax and went over it pretty heavy. It looks like metal to me, and that's what I was going for. So once I got those gilded and stuff, and then placed where I want it, and then I used the Type Bond glue and went back in and glued them down to the top where that resin base is there. So and then I just left it to dry, and that was pretty much the end of that, and it stuck down really well, and I think they came out really pretty. So thank you for spending time with me today. I appreciate all of you and all the words of support, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And if you have anybody that you think would like them, please share, and we will see you on Tuesday.